The 5 biggest mistakes that we see women doing when they're using walking for fat loss. Many women in their 40s and 50s tell me, Steph, I walk every day. I don't even eat that much and I'm still gaining weight. The belly fat is not budging. But here is the truth. Not all walking is actually created equal. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast, where we help you understand this new body of yours. Maybe you started to experience some hormonal symptoms, maybe you're post-menopause, but we know now that your body is inherently different and those old fat loss strategies just really aren't cutting it anymore. So it is time to learn how to work with this new body instead of against it, so you can open up those fat burning pathways, get your energy back, and feel confident again. Today, we are talking about the 5 biggest mistakes that we see women making when they are using walking as a tool for fat loss. Because I'm sure many of you have heard many a times, just walk a little bit more. It's the easiest way to lose fat. Just increase your steps. And listen, I love walking. It is free. It clears your head, it is gentle on your joints, and it absolutely plays a powerful role in fat loss over 40. But here is the truth. Not all walking is actually created equal. I see so many women trying to walk off that stubborn belly fat, and they're making the same mistakes over and over again. And they wonder why nothing is changing. And so today I want to dive into that, the 5 biggest mistakes that we see women doing when they're using walking for fat loss. And of course, how to fix them, because that is the most important part, because we want solutions here. So mistake number 1 might be an obvious one, but it's just not walking enough, right? A 5-minute stroll here and there is better than nothing. Absolutely. But if your goal is fat loss, we need a little bit more movement than that. And here is why. In perimenopause, unfortunately, that metabolism is shifting, right? Your hormones like estrogen and progesterone, which used to naturally help us burn, and partition that fuel, make our body good at taking food and turning it into fuel as opposed to storing it into fat. Those are starting to decline, right? And at the same time, when estrogen goes down, insulin resistance starts to increase, unfortunately, right? And this means that your body is more likely to take food and store it as fat instead of burning it off as energy, which is why you also have no energy, because our body is not good at taking food and turning it into energy. And so walking is one of the most powerful tools that we have to help fight back. But the magic happens when you're consistent and intentional with your daily steps. And so I always get this question, how much is enough, right? How much walking is enough walking? Because there are only so many hours in a day. And I hate when you see posts from those early 20s trainers who are like, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. No, we don't, right? Our 24 hours are partitioned very differently with different responsibilities. So how much is actually enough? And studies do show that 8,000 steps a day seems to be a really great target for fat loss, for metabolic health. So making sure your body is good at taking food and turning it into fuel, making sure we're not storing as much fat, helping us with our inflammation, particularly in midlife. And so you don't need to get them all at once, because that's not realistic. I can't do that. It's very, very challenging unless I have a day off and we're hiking or something, right? And so it's good to break them up into 10-minute chunks, do a 10-minute walk after a meal, go around the block while you're waiting for your coffee, when you're waiting to pick it up, if you order it, right? Park at a far end at a coffee shop, do a couple extra laps around the grocery store, walk while your kids are at their practice. And those extra steps don't have to feel like a workout, but they definitely add up. An extra 300 to 500 calories potentially burned in a day if we're going from a very low step rate to a much higher step rate, right? And so this is great, because the good news is you don't have to hop on a treadmill for that if you don't want to, right? I have a walking pad, which I love. It's very helpful for me when I'm writing or doing tasks, being in meetings, because otherwise it's very easy to just be stuck sitting all day, right? Which isn't good for lymph flow. It increases inflammation, and we don't want that. And so I also like to put the caveat of leave some steps in the tank, because I love using steps to help us when we're in a very structured fat loss phase. For everyday life, honestly, I'm pretty happy with 7,000, 8,000 steps a day. If we can increase a little bit more, awesome. But it needs to be realistic, right? Can you actually increase? Because in a fat loss phase, a lot of people, the stress of dropping your calories is a lot on your body, and we'll see more inflammation and installed fat loss, right? Because inflammation will block that fat burning pathway, push you into that storage state, telling your body we have enough, let's store, even though you're eating less and moving more. And so for myself in particular, when I cut calories, it is a very high stress on my body. I cannot cut that low and I cannot be in a deficit for a very long time. However, movement, my body doesn't perceive that as much of a stress. And so I like to make sure that I have room realistically to add an extra 2, 3, 4,000 steps to my day in a fat loss phase to help with the calories out without seeing that increase in inflammation, which will block my fat burning pathway. So for me, steps are a very valuable tool. But if I was already getting 10 to 12,000 steps in a day, for me to increase above that is very unrealistic based on my lifestyle and my job and just life in general, right? Like with the demands that I have. So I need to make sure that I always have some wiggle room where I can, naturally increase, but I'm still getting a good amount of steps in my day. And I think this is where a lot of people go wrong, where, they're doing 15, 17, 20,000 steps a day, and they're not in a fat loss phase. And then when we go into an actual fat loss phase and we add that calorie restriction, we don't have that extra lever to pull. So you want to have some extra tools that you can pull on when you're in a fat loss phase to help you with those results that we know are so much more challenging to get during perimenopause and menopause. So if you're only walking like 3,000 to 4,000 steps and struggling, right, this could be the missing link. We just need to increase those steps for you, right? And you can buy lots of fitness trackers that will show you, your steps counted. You can use your phone. Buying a super cheap pedometer to put on your actual shoe is probably one of the best ways to actually go about it. And so that's one way that you can do it. The one thing I do want to note here about fitness trackers is don't pay attention to calories burned. They can be wrong by up to 200%. So calories burned, do not pay attention to on your fitness tracker, because if you are eating according to that, it can be off by 200% in either direction. And so we want to make sure that you are just completely ignoring that. I did a whole podcast on that I can link below for you guys about different fitness trackers, how accurate they are, and the research behind it. There was a Harvard researcher who actually quoted that they were shocked at just how inaccurate they were. So we'll link that in the show notes for you if you're interested in that. So that's mistake number one. Mistake number two is actually walking too slowly. And I'll be the first to say it. Like, I love a slow, peaceful, relaxing walk, right? Sometimes you just need that mental break. A lot of us need to actually slow down. I like to use those kinds of walks to take a chance and pray and spend time with God. Other people like to use it as a way to clear their head, right? Those walks are beautiful and they are fantastic for stress reduction and for lowering cortisol, which is also incredibly important, right? However, if every single walk is this casual restorative walk, we're not tapping into the full fat burning potential of walking. And this is where zone 2 cardio comes in. And people are always like, well, what is zone 2? Zone 2 is a heart rate training zone. It's about 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. At this level, your body is primarily going to use fat as a main fuel source, which is awesome. And so here's how to find it if you actually want to calculate it and you track your heart rate when you're doing activity. You don't have to do that. I definitely don't. So you calculate it by going 220 minus your age. So if you're 50, that would be 170 beats per minute. So now in order for us to find 60%, we would times that by 0.6, which gives us 102. And then up to 70%, we times your 170 by 0.7, and that gives you 119. So your zone 2 range would be 102 to 119 beats per minute. If you don't have a fitness tracker or you don't want to look at heart rate like me, because I love my data, but I don't want to be paying attention to that on my watch all the time. So what you want to do is then use the talk test. This is where you can carry a conversation, full sentences. You're just a little bit breathy. It's kind of how I sound when I get really excited on a podcast, to be honest. But you wouldn't be able to sing. And I would never sing on a podcast because you would never listen ever again. If you are gasping for air, then we know that you're going too hard and you're dripping into that zone 3, zone 4 category. That's not what the goal is. We want to be in zone 2. And so why does this zone 2 even matter? One, it boosts fat burning. We know that with lower estrogen, your body doesn't naturally use fat for fuel as efficiently. So zone 2 can help retrain your mitochondria, those little powerhouses of the cell, if you remember from Bio 30. And what they are is for taking food and turning it into fuel. And so it helps your body burn fat again. It improves your insulin sensitivity, which helps lower stubborn belly fat, because if we are struggling with insulin resistance and insulin is high, it pushes us into that storage pathway, which tells your body we have enough, let's store, even though you're eating less and moving more, which is incredibly frustrating. And we know that insulin sensitivity goes down once we hit our late 30s, 40s, and 50s because of our hormonal adjustments, right? How things change. This zone 2 is also very gentle on our body. So unlike long runs or HIIT training every day, zone 2 walking is sustainable. It is actually going to help lower those stress hormones instead of spiking cortisol all the time, which is exactly what we need in midlife. So yes, we want to make sure we're keeping those, easy, soul nourishing time with God walks, but in 2 to 3 sessions per week, we want to pick up the pace a bit. We want to get into that zone 2 for 30, 40 minutes. Amazing. And that's when your body becomes, better at burning fat. Awesome. Mistake number 3. So we talked about not walking enough and then also walking too slowly. The next one is that we never change it up. And this is very, very common. And this is something I want everyone to hear, and you should tell everyone that because the truth is your body is brilliant at adaptation. It is very efficient. And so it's going to adapt to whatever you throw at it. Once you're doing something long enough, it adapts and doesn't require as much energy, right? This is why we need to change up our training program every 4 to 6 weeks, and also why we need to change our walking routine. So if you have been walking the exact same 20-minute loop around your neighborhood at the same pace, the same route, the same flat sidewalk for months, your body is like, cool. We are now really efficient at doing this. We know exactly how much energy we need to give. And there's never this adjustment. It's adapted to that. So you're not going to see the benefits like you did when you first started doing it. And so your body kind of goes on autopilot at that point. So that's the problem. Your body gets too comfortable and your results stall. So think of it like brushing your teeth. The first time you used an electric toothbrush, it felt real weird. Right? You're like, this is crazy. Actually, the first time I ever used an electric toothbrush, put toothpaste on my toothbrush and I turned it on before I had it in my mouth. There was toothpaste everywhere. It was a disaster. I was, you live and learn. First time is wild. But now when you use your electric toothbrush, you remember to put it in your mouth before you turn it on, but also it doesn't feel as weird, right? The vibration doesn't feel as aggressive. This is because your muscle and your nervous system adapt to that stimulus. It's the same thing actually with movement. It's always the same. Your body just ends up coasting because it adapts to the stimulus that it receives. So here is how to break through that adaptation wall when we are working with walking. 1, you can change your pace. Add intervals for your walk. Maybe you speed up for 1 to 2 minutes and then slow down for 2 to 3. Think of it like playing red light, green light with your own body almost. Switch up your terrain. Sidewalks are fine, right? But, maybe try grass, trails, even a sandy beach if you're lucky. We did that in Santa Barbara. It was fantastic. Coach Kirsten and I, we loved it. It's important to try different terrain because it's going to challenge your muscles in a different way. Your balance, it'll activate different muscles as well. It's important in midlife. We want to activate as many muscles as we can so that we can maintain that muscle mass that is oh so important. Add an incline, walk uphill, find a set of stairs, use a treadmill incline. But if you use a treadmill incline, do not hold on to the handles, because then if you think about it, if we're standing upright on a treadmill, we're at a 90-degree angle. If you increase the incline and then you lean back holding the handles, you're still at a 90-degree incline, right? You're 90 degrees, body to the treadmill. So do not use the handrails, okay? Hills are going to fire up your glutes and your legs, which are powerhouse calorie burners. That is where the bulk of our muscle is. Those are the biggest muscles in our body. We want to maintain those as best as we can. Plus, who doesn't want a nice butt and nice legs, right? Very, very nice to have. But they are also going to be the thing that allows us to eat more carbohydrates because it can store carbohydrates there instead of storing it as fat. It makes us more insulin sensitive by having more muscle in our butt and legs. So getting an incline can be really helpful. Play around with distance. One day you go for a 20-minute walk. The other day, maybe you're doing 40 minutes, right? Our body is going to like having a mix. And this doesn't mean every time you walk, it's different, but every other week, add something different in there. Maybe on, week 1, I'm going to add an incline walk one day. The next week, instead of an incline walk, maybe I'm going to do some intervals where I walk faster for 2 minutes and then, go back to my pace for a regular time. The next week, maybe I'm walking on grass 2 days a week. It doesn't have to be every single day different. You still want to have some consistency, but, add a little something in there to add a new stimulus to your body. And then of course you can also add weight. So adding a weighted vest can, help, or carrying light dumbbells, grocery bags in one trip, right? We're all like that. But the weighted vests can be helpful, great for bone. However, start light because it will make you aware of where your asymmetries are, where those imbalances are. So if you are someone who already has your hips kind of tilted forward and you have more of a curve in your lower back, a weighted vest is probably going to make you aware of some lower back pain because our hips aren't in alignment. And so start very lightly because it can really put pressure on those parts where, imbalances are, our knees, our hips. So start very light. And if you are experiencing some struggles, this is where we might have to work on some things, right? To bring things back to where they need to be. As a past exercise therapist and manual osteopathic therapist, this is something that I worked on with people forever, is bringing balance to their physical body in terms of, their joints, through exercise, through stretching, through mobility, all those things. Very important. And when our hormones are shifting in menopause, your metabolism doesn't like being on repeat, right? By mixing things up every now and then, your body has to downshift into fat storage mode. And then the variety helps it keep it fun. And then you're able to burn more fat, which is awesome. You're less likely to get bored too, which allows for more consistency, because when we're doing the same things all the time, let's be honest, it can suck, right? It's hard to want to keep doing the same thing over and over. We are people who like variety. That's how we get our dopamine hits. It's how we get motivation. It's how we, it lights up those brain systems, right? And so getting a little bit of variety that way can keep things kind of fun and less monotonous. So don't just walk the same loop every day. Challenge your body with new speeds, new surfaces, new durations, new directions. Think of it as flirting with your metabolism, keep it guessing. Keep it on its toes. It's fun. It's like dating. Then we have mistake number 4, ignoring resistance training. So this one is huge. Many women in their 40s and 50s tell me, Steph, I walk every day. I eat so clean. I don't even eat that much. I even lowered my carbs and I'm still gaining weight. The belly fat is not budging. And here's the truth. Walking is phenomenal. Let's be honest, we know there are so many benefits, but walking alone is not enough to get you to your goal if it's fat loss. And here is why. Your muscle is going to burn more calories in everything you do. So if I have 5 more pounds of muscle in my body right now than I did, let's say, a few months ago, let's just give an arbitrary number, I'm going to burn more calories in literally everything I do. Sleeping, sitting here podcasting, going for a walk, going for my workouts. You will just burn more because muscle burns more calories at rest. It's also going to make you more insulin sensitive, which means we're not stuck in that storage pathway, which means our body is not told we have enough, let's store, even though you're eating less and moving more. Instead, you're getting that fat burning signal. And so we need to make sure that you are getting muscle mass and maintaining that muscle mass. And every pound of muscle that you have is like a calorie burning furnace, because every muscle cell is going to have mitochondria in them, which is the powerhouses of the cell. It's like more factories where you can take food and turn it into fuel instead of fat. So the more muscle you have, the more of these factories you have in your body to take food and turn into fuel instead of storing it as fat. And we have the most muscle in our butt and in our legs. And as we age, especially, when estrogen and progesterone start to decline, we naturally lose muscle. Starting at 30, women lose up to 3 to 8% of their total muscle mass per decade. And that just accelerates as we hit menopause. So if you're not doing something to actually build and maintain your muscle mass, your metabolism will slow down. You will lose muscle mass. Even if weight goes down, muscle mass is going to go down as well. So you won't have that huge loss in body fat percentage. It takes time, right? Like we need to make sure that we are doing this appropriately to put on muscle mass. And when those hormones change, we know that that muscle building signal starts to go down and that muscle breakdown signal starts to go up. So we have to be even more intentional. It's not going to happen on accident. Your body's default is to lose muscle. So you have to do resistance training. Otherwise, your body's going to burn fewer calories at rest. Your body is more likely to store food as fat, and you're going to feel weaker and more fatigued, which we obviously do not want. So walking is great for your heart. It is great for your stress and your step count, but it's not going to build muscle mass. This is where resistance training comes in. You need a structured resistance training program. The program has to be the same for 4 to 6 weeks. Every Monday looks the same. Wednesday is different from Monday, but every Wednesday looks the same. Every Friday looks the same. Every single week you're working to get stronger. If the rep range says 10 to 12 and you could do more than 14, you're lifting too light. You're not sending a big enough muscle building signal. Your muscle building signal only increases when your body is trying really hard and is kind of close to that failure point. We want to leave 2 in the tank. If we don't think that we could do, if we could do 2 or more above that rep range, we're not going to get the muscle building signal that we want. So we need to make sure that we are pushing ourselves adequately when we are strength training. The good news is that you don't need hours in the gym, right? You could do 2 or 3 days a week, 30 to 40 minutes, full body workouts where you're utilizing squats, lunges, deadlifts, any kind of pulling exercises. So rows, lat pull downs, pull-ups, push-ups, dumbbell bench press, shoulder press. Those are really the only exercises you need. That's it. And just variations of those. It doesn't need to be this super long workout. I've been going to the gym 3 days a week. I'm only doing 4 to 5 exercises and I'm doing good. Body's changing. It's fantastic. So that's how you build lean tissue, is by, are you actually pushing yourselves in those workouts that use those nice big muscles? Because you want to use ones that, are using more muscle mass. The squats, all of your legs and your core, your deadlifts, back and your legs, right? It's going to send a bigger muscle building signal, which is so incredibly important since that's naturally blunted when our hormones go down. And this is where magic happens. Your body is primed to use food for fuel instead of storing it as fat. You'll notice your body composition starts to change, that you're stronger, you're more capable, you have more energy, your sleep is better. So don't fall in the trap of thinking walking is all you need. You need to pair it with resistance training to really unlock this level of fat loss and vitality that you're looking for. So that's mistake number 4. And then the last one is ignoring the little things. This one is sneaky, but it might be honestly one of the biggest game changers, because so many women think just walking counts. If I go for my 10-minute walk, right, you lace up your sneakers and you block it off in your calendar. But that's not necessarily true. We want to just get movement in throughout our day, our week. We want to structure a life around movement. And this is where something called NEAT, non-exercise activity, really comes into play. This is all the energy your body burns outside of official workouts, because workouts only account for 5 to 10% of our calories out in a day. Metabolism is up to 60%, and our non-exercise activity can be anywhere from 10 to 50% depending on your lifestyle. And so in perimenopause, when your metabolism is more sensitive and fat burning pathways can get blocked very easily, these small, consistent bursts of movement can keep your metabolism humming all day long, which is ideal. So here are some things of, that little things that women may overlook. Doing things around your house, like folding laundry, do it standing instead of sitting. Doing dishes or meal prep on your feet instead of sitting down at the counter or table. Tidying up in 10-minute bursts. Oh my gosh. With Grayson, he's like a little tornado. There's always stuff everywhere and he thinks it's a game. When I clean up, he makes a mess. But, the up and down, the squats, I don't know how women do it that have poor joints, having to get on the floor with your kids all the time. It is a workout, right? Daily errands. Parking further from the store instead of circling for the closest spot. Returning your cart all the way to the furthest corral. I will like fight Taylor for this sometimes, where I'm like, hey, I will take this cart back and I will go the long way around. Carrying groceries multiple trips into your house. Taking an extra lap around the grocery store. Couple extra laps. That adds up too, right? Micro movements. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Pace while you're on the phone. Get a walking pad and walk in meetings. Walk a lap around your kitchen or office every time you get up to go for water. Go to the furthest restroom wherever you work. Standing while scrolling social media and reading emails instead of sitting. You can like make yourself a little, make yourself a game out of it. Like I can only check my Instagram if I'm standing or if I'm pacing. That can change things a lot, right? If you still have commercials on TV, I don't think that happens very often anymore because we all opt out of them, right? But maybe doing some squats there. For me, after I go to the restroom, I do 10 squats before leaving the restroom. Sounds irrelevant, but that's an easy way to get an extra 50, 60 squats in a day. That'll add up in the long run, right? Doing calf raises when I'm brushing my teeth. We did a challenge with clients where we put 5 stickers in our home, somewhere where we go often. And every time we saw that sticker, we either had to do 10 lunges, 10 squats, or 10 push-ups. And so I told women, put one in your pantry, put one in your fridge. It makes you very aware of how often you go in there. Restroom is another good one, maybe on the back of your office door. If you're feeling very ambitious, put it on your phone. So every time you look at your phone, very easy way to get some movement in. And it shows, like studies show us, the more that we do movement throughout our day, the much better our blood sugars are going to be. Just with including those micro movements, it doesn't have to be this, huge structured thing. Those are very helpful in getting the different terrain and stuff like that, like we talked about, but just getting movement in general is very helpful. And you can also work it into family and friend time, right? Make it fun. Walk the dog a little bit longer than usual, playing tag with your kids or your grandkids, dancing in the kitchen while dinner is cooking. That counts, right? Like there's all of these little things that can be so helpful, and like make it a game. Bring your like family into it. Everyone loves challenges. Everyone's competitive. Like you can, challenge your family. Everybody has to do 100 squats before the end of the day. Break it up however you want. That kind of stuff is helpful. And they're just like little extra credit things. They're kind of the foundation is building your life around movement. Because for many of us, we build our life around sitting, and it shouldn't be that way, right? And the best part is those things don't require workout clothes or a schedule, even extra time, because you're just working it into what you're already doing. And again, it just changes your lifestyle to one of more movement. And so to recap, the 5 biggest mistakes that we see with walking with women over 40 is not walking enough, walking too slowly, so never getting into that zone 2, 60 to 70% max heart rate, never changing the routine, so always walking for the same amount of time around the same neighborhood, doing the exact same path, ignoring resistance training, and ignoring the little things of movement throughout your day. Walking is so powerful when used properly. And it's not about punishment, it's about support. When you combine smart walking with resistance training, balanced nutrition, stress management, and recovery, your body finally is in a state where your nervous system is relaxed, your fat burning pathway is no longer blocked, it's opened up, and it makes fat loss an option now, where it wasn't even before. So thanks for being here. Share with your friends who are avid walkers. Challenge each other to add some variety in there. I love you so, so much, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.